We do begin with some rare good news in the battle against the coronavirus. Evidence that an antiviral drug might help patients recover more quickly, Savannah.
In the meantime, federal social distancing guidelines are set to expire today at midnight. The White House signaling they will not be extended because governors are now working the restrictions into their reopening plans for their states. And to that end, at least 25 states are set to ease stay-at-home orders by the weekend.
Overall, there are nearly 1.1 million cases of the coronavirus in the United States and 61,000 deaths, but both are now rising at a slower pace. We do have complete coverage, including a live interview with Dr. Anthony Fauci. But first, NBC's Tom Costello has more on that potential treatment that is showing some promise. Good morning, Tom.
Yeah, good morning, Hoda. So, we've been talking for weeks about potential drugs that might have some efficacy, might work against this pandemic. None of them yet has had the gold seal of approval from the NIH or approved by the FDA. That may now be about to change because there is promising news now about this drug called Remdesivir. It may be a real effective strategy in the fight against this pandemic. This morning, a promising option for treating the sickest coronavirus patients. With President Trump's urging, the FDA appears poised to approve the use of Remdesivir, an antiviral that has shown positive signs during clinical trials led by the NIH.
It is a medicine that prevents the virus from growing.
What it is proven is that a drug can block this virus.
Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's lead infectious disease expert, saying there is clear-cut evidence it works.
We think it's really opening the door to the fact that we now have the capability of treating, and I can guarantee you, as more people, more companies, more investigators get involved, it's going to get better and better.
The NIH trial involved nearly 1,100 patients worldwide. So far, Remdesivir has accelerated median recovery times from 15 to 11 days. And at 8%, the mortality rate is lower than the 11.6% for those who received a placebo.
This is Remdesivir versus placebo.
Leading the charge for the global trial, Emory University Hospital, which had more patients than any other site. We've been in contact for several weeks with the top researcher there, Dr. Anish Mehta.
We've now found that Remdesivir has a significant effect, and so we do want to make sure that we offer it to all the patients that would qualify and would get benefit from it.
Still, he cautions these results are preliminary. Arnold Wegg is both a doctor and a patient. He recovered from COVID-19 after receiving Remdesivir along with another drug, Actemra.
I think it's really appropriate to give these medicines with established track records a try in this desperate population.
It's important to note Remdesivir is not for everybody. It's for the sickest of the sick in the hospital ICU. It's only treatable or usable, I should say, in an IV form. You're not going to see this in a pill form at the local pharmacy. The NIH says its study still needs to be peer-reviewed. Gilead Sciences is ramping up production of the med. And now researchers want to know how effective it is in combination with other drugs, and might that be even more helpful? Savannah, back to you.
All right, Tom, thank you. That sets us up nicely for Dr. Anthony Fauci, the face of America's response to the coronavirus pandemic and the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, which ran that study. Dr. Fauci, it's good to see you with some good news to report this morning. You said that Remdesivir is not a knockout. This isn't a miracle drug, but it sounds like it is a breakthrough. Can you explain why?
Well, it's a really important proof of concept because this is the first very highly powered, about 1,100 individuals, and it was a placebo-controlled randomized trial, which I've been talking about for some time now, which is really the gold standard of how you prove something is safe and either works or doesn't work. And although the results were clearly positive from a statistically significant standpoint, they were modest. The improvement was 31% better chance of recovering and getting out of the hospital. That's important, but it's the first step in what we project will be better and better drugs coming along, either alone or in combination, drugs of this type and drugs addressing other targets of the virus. So it's good news, but I was very serious when I said this is not the total answer by any means, but it's a very important first step.
The FDA is expected to grant emergency usage for this so that it could be put into practice right away. What do you know about that? How soon do you expect that?
Well, you know, it's going to be really quickly. I was speaking with the commissioner of the FDA last night, and he's moving along very quickly. They have not made a final decision yet. They have not announced it, but I would project that we're going to be seeing that reasonably soon.
The company that makes the drug has described a very complex process. This is not easy. It's not a pill. It's intravenous. It takes months and months to manufacture. Are you confident that enough can be out there soon enough to make a difference here?
Well, what I'm hearing, Savannah, is that the company is really committed to get it out as much as they can, as quickly as they can. So I would hope that that actually winds up being the case. I'm pretty confident that that will be the case because I believe they're committed to trying to get this out as quickly as possible. So we'll see, but I think it's going to happen.
We've been talking about a treatment. The big picture here, we all are badly wanting a vaccine, as you well know. The administration has confirmed that it has a program called Operation Warp Speed. That's what the administration is calling it, with, according to reports, the goal to speed the timeline for a vaccine to develop hundreds of millions of doses to be ready by January. Do you feel that's in the realm of possibility?
Yeah. Yeah, I do, Savannah. I mean, I'm obviously part of the team that's involved in that. And the question is, you always have to say you want to get a vaccine that is safe and that's effective and that you can scale up rapidly. So what the plan is right now, as I mentioned to you a couple of times on the show, we're in the early phases of a trial, phase 1. When you go into the next phase, we're going to safely and carefully, but as quickly as we possibly can, try and get an answer as to whether it works and is safe. And if so, we're going to start ramping up production with the companies involved. And you do that at risk. In other words, you don't wait until you get an answer before you start manufacturing. You, at risk, proactively start making it, assuming it's going to work. And if it does, then you could scale up and hopefully get to that timeline. So we want to go quickly, but we want to make sure it's safe and it's effective. I think that is doable.
That's a big,
if things fall in the right place. Yeah.
I was going to say, though, that's a big deal because we've heard you say 12 to 18 months. I mean, January, hundreds of millions of doses that could be ready. I mean, that would be huge.
Right. Well, yeah, but Savannah, remember, go back in time. I was saying in January and February that it would be a year to 18 months. So January is a year. So it isn't that much from what I had originally said. But it's aspirational.
Well, time flies, I guess.
When I said a year, that was the...
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Let me ask you about the stay-at-home orders. The federal guidelines expire today. Many states are taking steps now to open up their states in different ways. How nervous does that make you as the person who's got their eye on this pandemic?
Well, Savannah, I wouldn't say it makes me nervous, but it makes me, again, committed to the things that I have been speaking about now for a considerable period of time, ever since we got into the mitigation phase, the 30-day guidelines of gradually opening up as we get into now opening up America. Remember, that's a phased process. The first phase, we call it gateway. In other words, you've really got to have 14 days of continual diminution in the number of your cases. So if the states and locally follow those guidelines in a gradual way and have the capability of, if you get blips, which we will get blips, Savannah, there's no doubt, when you pull back, there will be cases. And what we need to do is make sure they have in place the capability of identifying, isolating, and contact tracing individuals. If they do that,
do the states that
I feel cautiously optimistic. I feel cautiously
optimistic. And do the
optimistic
states that are taking those measures
that will do it.
Yeah. Sorry for the overtalk because we're on our satellite, but just do the states that are taking those steps now, in your mind, have that ability to contact trace and crack down on an outbreak if it starts again?
You know, Savannah, honestly, I can't go state by state with you and say this state is doing this and they have it. The only thing I could do is from 40,000 feet just continue to urge the ones who don't have that capability to really go very slowly. And those that do, go ahead and go by the guidelines. The guidelines are very, very explicit and very clear. There's a lot of leeway because we give the governors the opportunity to be very flexible. But you have to have the core principles of the guidelines. You can't just leap over things and get into a situation where you're really tempting a rebound. That's the thing I get concerned about. I hope they don't do that.
All right, Dr. Fauci, thank you for your time this morning. We really appreciate it. And we should mention that tomorrow morning on Today, we're going to have the first television interview with the CEO of Gilead Sciences. That is the company that makes Remdesivir, and that's tomorrow morning on Today. Hoda, over to you.
All right, Savannah, thank you. Let's continue the discussion on the battle over the nation's reopening. By the end of this week, roughly 1 in 3 Americans will see their stay-at-home orders relaxed. But overnight, NBC News learned California is tapping the brakes. NBC's Sam Brock joins us from a hotel in Miami where resorts are confused about when and if they can open. Hey, Sam, good morning.
Hoda, good morning. The governor here in the state of Florida unveiling plans to reopen parts of the state, but across the country, a completely different story. We are expecting the governor there, Gavin Newsom, to be announcing today that he's going to be putting state parks and beaches back on a total lockdown.
This morning, California taking a step backwards after crowds packed just open beaches over the weekend. 2 law enforcement sources telling NBC News Governor Gavin Newsom now plans to shut down all beaches and state parks effective tomorrow. On Wednesday, he told Savannah trying to recover too quickly could start a second wave more damaging than the first.
We just don't want to run the 90-yard dash. You saw the images. That is a real concern.
The Bay Area also extending its shelter-in-place orders through May, although limited outdoor businesses can reopen, including construction and golf courses. In an effort to get back to normal, the mayor of Los Angeles promising to make coronavirus testing available to anyone who wants it, whether they have symptoms or not, the first major U.S. city to do so. Meanwhile, in Florida, where some of Miami Beach's most iconic stretches sit empty,
we do have hope. There is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Governor Ron DeSantis allowing restaurants and retail to reopen next week at 25% capacity, but not in the 3 biggest counties in the southeast part of the state. Arash Azarbarzan runs this luxury hotel on Miami Beach.
It's more frustrating than confusing. We wish there was one message.
In hard-hit New York City, where plans to reopen remain on hold, a grim discovery. Dozens of bodies found decomposing in trucks outside of a Brooklyn funeral home after it ran out of room. Its owner faces no criminal charges, but did receive 2 citations from the health department. With more than 18,000 dead, the city's funeral homes and cemeteries have been overwhelmed. The outlook much brighter in Miami Beach, where familiar comforts are finally returning. The city opening parks, golf courses, and marinas, even as many businesses remain shuttered.
I literally feel like this is the best day of my life, and it brings me hope, for the future. Like, this thing might be ending soon.
It's like a weight being lifted off your chest in a way.
Oh, yeah.
So far, no state that's reopening right now has met the White House guidelines of 14 straight days of declining COVID-19 cases. As for what's going on here in Miami Beach, local leaders right now tell us they're expecting June for hotels and restaurants. And Hoda and Savannah, some interesting things going on here. I'm at one hotel on South Beach where a new, safer, stronger implementation they're bringing into play, infrared cameras that can take body temperatures of up to 120 people per minute, allowing them to flag potential fevers. Hoda, back to you.
Wow, taking a lot of precautions there. All right, Sam, thank you. Savannah?
And now, Hoda, to that story of hope and perseverance in New York City. A patient who survived a long battle with coronavirus is finally back home. And that was the moment. Rodrigo Saval received a heartwarming send-off from doctors and nurses at Mount Sinai West Hospital yesterday. He was the hospital's first COVID patient way back at the beginning of March. Well, 53 days later, he's healthy and he's going home. Amazing to see the healthcare workers applauding him. you know what? They deserve applause as well.
I got to tell you, I just like this newscast. We started with a potential treatment. We ended the block with a guy going home. So that's a good way to start it. All right. What do you say we check in with Mr. Roker? Something else good and get a check of the forecast. Hey, Al.
Hey guys, good morning. Unfortunately, here in the East, what a mess we've got going on. As you can see, we've got 44 million people at risk for flooding today. This line stretches 1,300 miles from Florida all the way up into New England. And today we're going to be looking at very heavy rain, risk of flooding in the Northeast and New England, wind gusts of 60 to 70 miles per hour. We're going to be watching this closely through tomorrow. The early downpours for New England will continue and then wrap around showers along the coast. Cooler air coming in. Temperatures will be 10 to 20 degrees below average. Rainfall amounts anywhere from 1 to 3 inches, but you can't rule out isolated areas of 4 inches or more, and that's why we have flash flood watches in effect.